Ephemera. I'm fantasy author Katie Brisky.
And I'm editor Jen Albert.
Welcome, fellow travelers on this strange and winding road we call life. It is a pleasure to see you all again.
For those of you who are new, Ephemera is an award-nominated reading series chaired by Katie and myself. Though our hearts remain at the Glad Day bookshop where we normally are, we have migrated online. Now, the usual opening. Does anybody know what the theme today is?
That's right, it is Journeys indeed. Now we would like to begin tonight by acknowledging that the land on which Jen and I live and work is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. This land is covered under Treaty 13 and is part of the Dish with One Spoon. Our theme tonight is journeys, and the journey that led to me sitting here on this land tonight has been shaped by colonialism. The road that led me here was laid by British settlers who liked the monarchy quite a lot, and Eastern European settlers happy to take up an offer of free land. Of course, it wasn't free. It cost Indigenous peoples very, very much, and that monarchy still has their blood on its hands. And this understanding of this and this awareness is starting to filter into the history we teach and the conversations we have with each other. I think we often talk about reconciliation like it's a destination, when it's a journey too. It's a complex one that feels like we take a step forward only to take another back. The University of Alberta is currently offering a free online course about Indigenous histories and contemporary issues in Canada, which is seeing a substantial uptake, aided by celebrity students. But in the same breath, Alberta's social studies curriculum advisor, Chris Champion, calls the inclusion of Indigenous perspectives a fad. The Government of Canada is providing $26.4 million in assistance to Indigenous people in urban areas, a drop in the bucket, trust me, but over a third of Indigenous peoples in Canada are struggling to pay for essentials during this pandemic. So one step forward, how many steps back? But we have to keep moving, especially when it's hard. Listening and learning and passing the mic is a step. Supporting with funds and resources where you can, and signal boosting is another step. We challenge you to consider where your journey is headed and to bring concrete, disruptive change at every turn. Thank you.
Just a few housekeeping things for tonight. As a reminder, we've recently updated our code of conduct for online events. If this is your first event, please do check it out on Twitter or on Facebook. And as a reminder, you can feed Fred the physically distanced donation dragon on our Ko-fi link. It should be in the banner on any of our social medias and at the top of your YouTube window. All donations are helping us to keep running.
So, it's journeys, eh? Jen, would you like to go on a journey?
I would love to go on a journey. Unfortunately, there's a pandemic.
I meant a journey of the imagination, and we can all go on it together. So through the night, I'm going to read bits of an adventure for us, and you, the audience, can vote on key choices in the chat and on Twitter. Just search @Ephemera Series for the poll.
Okay, so how does the journey start?
Once upon a time, there was a merry band of friends. They called themselves Ephemera. One evening in August, they decided to set out on a grand adventure. But which way would they go? Towards the shimmering bog? Up the hill to the crumbling manor? Or to the cold fire of the stars?
Okay, so shimmering bog, crumbling manor, or to the cold stars. Please vote on our Twitter, or you can also vote in the YouTube chat, and we will tally it.
I'm posting the tweet right now. Just give me a sec.
1 second.
It will
be okay.
And we'll see where our journey takes us.
But now, manners.
Let's introduce our first reader.
After leaving molecular biology, Derek worked with street kids in Central America before finding himself in the Canadian Foreign Service. He now writes science fiction in Gatineau, Quebec, and teaches his son about science and being good. A good thing to teach. His short fiction has appeared in Asimov's Analog, Clark's World, and Beneath Ceaseless Skies, as well as a number of years' best anthologies. His first novel, The Quantum Magician, was nominated for the Locus, Aurora, and the Chinese Nebula Awards, and has been published in English, Mandarin, Japanese, French, and Russian. The House of Sticks is his third novel and is the start of a new series.
Thank you. So thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. And so I'm going to read tonight from chapter 30-something of The House of Sticks, which is coming out tomorrow. There are a lot of journeys in this novel, but I decided to pick a particular one. It's a novel, basically it's a Godfather story set in the clouds of Venus, and there are upper clouds which are brightly lit, and there's lower clouds where the poor people live. And right now you have, in this scene, there's Pascal who lives in the lower cloud decks, and he's taking somebody he just met from the upper cloud decks down there, and they run into trouble. Pascal is taking Gabriel Antoine, and Gabriel Antoine is hitting on Pascal a bit, which is disconcerting. And at this moment, they've missed their mark, and so they're looking to improvise. And it's, I think it shows a bit of the city mouse, country mouse effect. So I will start here in chapter 30-something. How good are you at point landings in those wings? Pascal asked. I don't think I've ever landed with them, Foucault said, an edge of tension creeping into his voice. How small is your home? We're not landing on the Cosapscal des Profondeurs. We're landing on a trawler. A wild one? 100 meters lower was the mid-sized trawler, about 7 meters in diameter, with 6 lobes pressed against one another like fat orange slices. Its surface was overgrown with slimy black plants that threaded roots into a silty paste in the center of its top. Lank vines hung down the bulbous sides, looking like stringy hair. You go first, Pascal said. Be ready to fly if you miss. I'll catch you if you damage your wings. Foucault's labored breathing sounded in his helmet as if he were about to say something pithy or funny, but in the end, the seriousness of the situation seemed to have sunk in. D'accord. Foucault swooped lower, slowing his airspeed. The keening of his wing pack dropped off every few seconds as he experimented with his approach. Finally, he slowed, swooped up beside the trawler, flaring into a stall. He splashed onto the muck of its peak, falling over but clinging to the center pit, stopping his momentum before he went over the side. Brilliant, Pascal said. Foucault's weight was now sinking the trawler. That was the reason Pascal had wanted to go second. It was one thing to land on a relatively stationary target. It was another to juggle a landing swoop onto a sinking platform only 7 meters wide. Get down, Pascal said, swooping in faster than Foucault had done. Pascal flared, bleeding away his airspeed, then swooped down, stalling and extending his spoilers, cutting his lift at the moment he was over the trawler. He surprised himself by landing shakily on his feet. Pascal sat and put both feet in the puddle in the center of the trawler top. He wiped some of the slime off the surface and spread it over his suit. Scoop up the scum on the edges of the trawler, Pascal said. Put it on your feet and then put at least 1 foot in the middle to keep them from slipping off. Shadows hid much of Foucault's expression behind the faceplate, but he ran his fingers over the mucus with distaste and wiped it off slowly as Pascal had done. Then, doubtfully, he dipped 1 foot into the puddle in the middle. The trawler was sinking more quickly, emerging into a hollow in the subcloud haze, a small, clear space, maybe 200 meters. Foucault looked all around. The temperature was 140 degrees now and close to 3.5 atmospheres. Remember to breathe deep, Pascal said, and keep at it. Ow, Foucault said, swatting at his thigh. A tiny hole had formed there. Foucault's suit wasn't as good as he'd thought. It wasn't lasting as long as it should have in the sulfuric acid. Foucault pulled a kit out of a sealed pocket, broke it, and dabbed at the opening. He was doing it wrong, though, and not quickly enough. He was quick enough for the world above the clouds, but not here. Pascal's hands moved fast, thought free, swiping open his own old kit. He made 1 quick neutralizing wipe, goopy, a second wipe with his fingers, making certain the bicarbonate squished through the tear before slapping a patch and sealing it quickly with epoxy. 10 seconds. Done. Foucault looked at him strangely. What was that? Foucault asked. The pressure's 30 times what you're used to, and it's 170 degrees hotter here. Acid chemistry is just different. You can't be slow. And You shouldn't get your legs scarred up on account of a visit, Pascal said awkwardly. Thank you, Foucault said after a moment. Thank you. And then he smiled. What? I didn't even ask you to play doctor with me yet. I'm not a doctor, Pascal said. Foucault looked at him strangely, and Pascal wondered what he'd missed. You haven't done this much, have you? Pascal asked. Foucault shook his head. He prodded at the patch over his leg. It still stings. Will it scar much? The acid is neutralized, but you still burned yourself. That's just a small one, though. You do this a lot? Oui. You have scars? Lots. The pressure was over 5 atmospheres now. Foucault looked like he wanted to say something, but he looked a bit red-faced too. Breathe, Pascal said. Deep, slow breaths. I see something, Foucault said, pointing down. The haze below them was thinning. Whoa, Pascal said. Lumpy, dark shapes moved below, indistinct. We shouldn't be able to see this, not from 35th rang. The haze thinned and melted, revealing the black and gray of Venus without her diaphanous mists. Venus' ugly hide wrinkled beneath them, like the planet herself had shrunk but kept the same skin. Like a great sore, Mat Mons stared back at them, the volcano standing 9 kilometers high, on a highland 1,000 kilometers wide. The surface leaked with other volcanoes. To the west was the shriveled stub of Sapas Mons and the other great volcanic peak, Oza Mons, standing over 7 kilometers tall. To the north, the highlands narrowed and tumbled deeply down into Gannis Chasma, with innumerable channels carved into the sides by lava. Foucault's hand reached out and took Pascal's. Pascal felt hot, like he himself was Venusian stone, radiating heat, but he didn't pull his hand away. They'd lived all their lives in and over clouds. Solid rock was a strange, magical thing, hypnotic and deeply touching. Foucault leaned over, mouth gaping, and then he was smiling. I've never seen the surface, he said. And today was the first time I'd seen the sun, Pascal said. They looked at each other, making Pascal feel awkward. He was going to slip and probably needed to grab onto something, but he wasn't quite ready to let go of Foucault's hand. Gabriel Antoine's hand. He had a beautiful name. This is the true Venus, Gabriel Antoine said, as if sensing Pascal's thumping heart. This, Pascal said, and then, like an idiot, forgot what he wanted to say. His brain just shut off. We shouldn't be able to see it from here. The haze usually only clears at 32nd rang, but sometimes it rises or even clears when the volcanoes are really active. The words came out like a know-it-all tumble. He breathed deeply, feeling the warm air in his lungs in a way that he hadn't felt the cool air of the habitats above the clouds. This was more than just a lucky sighting of the surface. This is only a part of it. Venus hides important parts of herself from us. Poetic, Gabriel Antoine said. My brother is the poet, Pascal said quickly. There are different kinds of poets, Gabriel Antoine said. We can make poetry with machines. We can make poetry out of flying, turning it into a dance. I'm not anything, Pascal said. I saw the way you looked at my wing packs, Gabriel Antoine said, moving a bit closer. Even in the gloom and even shuttered by the faceplate, his eyes were a piercing pale blue. I saw the way you flew in the depths, the way your body moves like you belong down here, like you're seeing things I can't see and adding them to some cloud dance. Pascal looked away, but left his hand in Gabriel Antoine's. The words were beautiful, and Pascal couldn't believe that Gabriel Antoine was saying them to him. Here, standing on a cloud creature above Venus in recline, a sight that only a few hundred people in all of history had ever seen with their own eyes. Gabriel Antoine edged closer uncertainly and almost slipped. Pascal grabbed him with both arms and steadied him. Gingerly, Gabriel Antoine stilled in his grasp. Pascal swallowed. Nothing on a trawler is flat, Pascal said weakly. It takes practice. I'm surprised you haven't fallen yet. Maybe I'm close, Gabriel Antoine said. I'll stop there.
All right, let me come back up. Here we go. All right. Well, the votes are in.
So, where are we going?
We are going to the Crumbling Manor. Dun dun dun. As we push through the door, the hinges yield like a corpse's rigid fingers. The floorboards creak as though pained by our feet. Room by room, we find cobwebs, wilted flowers, mysterious stains in the corners. But hark! Upstairs, mysterious music! Do we investigate?
Do we investigate? Do we run away? Or do we just hold still, freeze in place? Please vote on Twitter and in the chat.
And we shall have to see where our journey goes next. In the meantime, I'm very pleased to introduce our musical performers, Alex Hetherington and Scott Downing. And I'm quite sure this was not the mysterious music we heard coming from upstairs in the manor. Alex Hetherington, mezzo-soprano, recently completed her Bachelor of Music at the University of Toronto, receiving a Faculty of Music Graduating Award, and she is very excited to be starting graduate studies this fall at U of T's Opera School. A versatile artist, she has experience performing a wide variety of styles with a special passion for contemporary music and exploring works by underrepresented composers. Highlights from this past season include singing with Tapestry Opera, Toronto City Opera, Orpheus Choir, and Toronto Summer Music. Alex also composes and has had several works performed in concert. In her spare time, she can be found reading, gardening, and admiring dogs, as we all do. Scott Downing is an active solo, collaborative, and chamber pianist in Canada and abroad. He earned his bachelor's degree in piano performance from the University of Toronto, having studied with Henri-Paul Siksik and Boris Lysienko. Upon graduating, he received the W.O. Forsyth Scholarship. He earned his master's degree in performance at McGill University and has his graduate diploma in performance, having studied with Marina Medivany. In October 2018, Scott attended the renowned Oxford Leader Master Course in Oxford, England, with soprano Caroline Baudouin to study and perform art song. He was also invited with Caroline to compete in the prestigious Das Lied competition in Heidelberg, Germany in February 2019. That summer, Scott was a fellow of the Toronto Summer Music Festival's Art of Song program. In addition to his collaborative career, Scott is also a ballet accompanist at Canada's National Ballet School. Right. Welcome, Scott and Alex. It's very good to have you.
Thanks so much for having us, Katie. I knew you were going to do that evil thing where you read our biographies in full. Anyway, we're really excited to be here and to be sharing this music. We've brought two songs for tonight. The first is called Seal Man, and it was written by Rebecca Clark. It explores the legend of the Selkie, and I know I'll be preaching to the choir if I explain in too great detail what that is. It's a creature from Celtic mythology who is half seal, half human, and has a penchant for luring people down into the sea. And we're going to be beginning this performance with a short spoken segment from the larger poem, just to give a bit of context. Them that live in the water and have ways of calling people. Them that passed the seal man felt the call in their hearts. Indeed, if you passed the seal man stepping the road, you would get a queer twist from the way he looked at you. And he came by her cabin on the west of the road, calling. There was a strong love came up in her at that, and she put down her sewing on the table, and mother, she says, there's no luck, no
We're all applauding and shaking.
So we have one more song for you tonight. It's called Night by Florence Price. She was a hugely influential American composer. She was actually the first African-American woman to have her symphonies performed by major orchestras in the States. And this song is one of our favorites. It's essentially a hymn to the beauty of the night, and we thought we'd end with it because evening is setting in here in Toronto, and we can all kind of take a moment to meditate and yeah, this is Night.
amazing.
Feels weird to
No. Wow. You've earned it.
Just beautiful.
Aw, bravissimi, friends. That was amazing.
Thanks.
Well done.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having us.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
for
much.
coming. All right. Well, our journey.
Someone in chat
Oh.
was asking about the first song. Alex, was that one that you wrote?
No, I wish. That was written by Rebecca Clark, and she's a
Okay.
great composer to look up if you guys are interested.
Rebecca
Thank you.
Clark with an E.
That's
friends.
right. Yes.
Yeah, Rebecca Clark with an E. All right. Well,
Oh.
this is actually very apropos as we continue our journey, because it seems that we have chosen to investigate the mysterious music coming
Everybody's
from this
very
crumbling
bold.
manor. The vote was not even close.
Not
so
even close.
let's continue our journey. The music
music.
floats like the cobwebs, a shimmering net in the darkness. We climb the stairs to a shadowed chamber. A figure of smoke and mist sings to itself. As we gape, it turns. "Oh, travelers," it moans, "would you stay with me through this lonely night until the clock strikes 12? Well, a yes or no answer.
Well-
Are we gonna hang out with this ghost until midnight? Yes or no? You can vote on Twitter and in the chat. All right.
Well, I wonder where the journey goes next. Please let us know. Before we get there, I'm pleased to introduce our next reader, Phoebe Barton. Phoebe is a queer trans science fiction writer. Her short fiction has appeared in venues such as Analog, On Spec, and Kaleidotrope, and anthologies from Bundoran Press and Alliteration Inc. And she just finished a draft of a mammoth interactive fiction project with Choice of Games. She serves as an associate editor at Escape Pod and is a 2019 graduate of Clarion West Writers Workshop. She lives with a robot in the sky above Toronto. You can connect with her on Twitter at Phoebe Barton or on her website, phoebebartonsf.com. Everybody welcome Phoebe. Oh. Muted.
Hello. So thanks for coming by to watch and listen. And yeah, what I'm going to be reading today is the story The Dreadnought and the Stars, which will be appearing in the anthology Glitter and Ashes, Queer Tales of a World That Wouldn't Die, which will be coming out in September and is an anthology of queer joy and queer community in the face of disaster. That'll be coming out in September, as I said, from Neon Hemlock Press. The four sisters stand between me and the lake, towering concrete cigarettes against the setting sun. I wave to them as if they're old friends, but I'm really waving to their protectors to show that I'm here and friendly, and it'd be best for everyone if they didn't put themselves in my giant shadow. The one and only time I had to scrape congealed guts off my boots, I had nightmares for weeks after. Picking the crushed swords and guns and bones out with tweezers was the worst. That was what made it real. I don't have to wave, but I do. Decency is decency, no matter how tall you are. That's what Nora said back before everything fell apart. I pick through the wreck until I find the red and blue signal flag the Three Rivers merchants told me to look for, and I lower 306 tons of coal onto a cracked and faded parking lot that'll never see another car. Can't tell you how thankful we are, says the person with the money. The sack of coins they set out for me has buying power from here to the edge of the lakes. We're getting close to the bottom of the hoppers, but this will keep us going until the next ship puts in. Great. The entire place already reeks of smoke. The entire place already reeks of smoke and coal dust. as if someone's trying to summon a new apocalypse. You ever heard of a woman named Nora? About as tall as my fingernail, red hair, loves swords? I don't get out much. You could try the friendly get together, but they gestured to a little wooden building about as tall as my ankle. It'd be a hard time for you to squeeze in. I take a breath and imagine how much compression I'd need to duck through a door frame, and my heart races. It's been so long since I last squeezed myself ordinary. I'd be vulnerable and too small to run away. Yeah, back when I took the Dreadnought Oath and touched the monolith, I thought about all the people I could help and protect. I thought about how I could still show Nora the love she deserved when I towered over her. I didn't think about all the places I'd be far too big to go. I definitely didn't think about everything I might lose. One thing they never told me about becoming a giant is that your nightmares get that much bigger. The stars say it's about 4 in the morning. I've got a sense for that now. Not like when I was small, when I still had luxuries like beds and doors and roofs and love. Damn, I grumble. I stretch and shift, looking for some modicum of comfort on a little rubble-strewn meadow, and that's when I hear the murmuring voices. In the moonlight, I find a pair of bedbugs who weren't smart enough to run back home the instant I started moving. Shortage at the blood bank? The bedbugs drop their little improvised syringe, more of a scraper really, when they realize I'm talking to them. So many people forget I'm not a curvier than usual mountain. Lucky for you, I'm O negative. Bedbugs fall over each other as they scurry off. Men like that, and they're always men, are full of piss and vinegar when they think there won't be a lick of danger. When danger licks its lips, they're the first to run. I toss and turn, but I don't find any more sleep before sunrise makes it impossible. I've heard talk of a few settlements sheltering beneath the old city's bones, and Nora could have visited any of them. If it turns out she hasn't, at least my list gets that much shorter. One inescapable truth of life is that people tend to get helpful once you do things for them. And one inescapable truth of being a giant is that there's a lot of things I can do for people. Between hauling, clearing, and heavy lifting, I can make a settlement's day pretty quick. After I spend a few hours decluttering the roads in Streetstown, with a name like that, you'd think they'd have managed without me. One of the braver locals points me towards a community down by the lakeshore, in an old rail yard not far from the Four Sisters. They get a lot of people coming and going, the local says. It's that kind of place, even if they are a bunch of disgusting deviants. Excuse me? One thing they did tell me about becoming a giant is that you don't have to take any bullshit. Sorry, I was too busy being a big giant lesbian to hear you. Can you repeat that? I smile, really wide. I let the little guy see my teeth. It's the sort of message that's hard to misread. They they get a lot of people coming and going, the local says. Lots of variety. Is that so? After this, I'm sure I won't be welcome in Streetstown again, but there are plenty of wrecked cities. Thanks for the hint, and don't forget, be kind to each other. The world's not going to do it for us. The city's one of the old suburbs, built for space and speed and the assumption that everyone in the world wanted their own little cardboard castle, and so there are plenty of roads big enough to fit my feet and then some. Can't imagine what the builders were thinking. For an ordinary sized person, they'd be asphalt rivers. Every once in a while, they set off mines with little thumps meant to blast legs off. They don't even break my skin. Public service. The rail yard's the biggest clear space I've seen in ages. No trees, no greenery, just expanses of track gone to wreck on gravel beds. Here and there, old train cars quietly rust where they sat the day the world went askew. I see a riot of cloth ceilings strung up around a long, low building. That must be where everyone's hanging out. I've seen villages built inside everything from shopping malls to shipping containers. At first, there isn't much to grab my attention, and then I see it. A mural covering the side of a shipping container with smooth, bold lines, bright colors, and soaring birds. It's hope for the future done in brushstrokes. Nora's work, certain and sure. The world deserves brightness, I hear Nora say, or at least a dream of her. Reality is dark enough. It's my responsibility to add some light. I step over a long, low perimeter wall and hear alarms go off as if it's someone else's problem. Murals can take a while to paint, and this one doesn't look too weathered. Maybe she only left recently. Maybe there are people who know where she went. I don't let myself hope that she's still here. Shouts rise to accompany the alarms, but I'm careful where I put my feet and kneel in front of the mural. My eyesight's keen, but I'm too big to pick out the signature. I bite my lip and take a breath. I could always keep doing what I've been doing after all, wandering from ruin to ruin, sleeping in rubble fields, following dim hopes until it gets too dark to see. I close my eyes and take another breath. I don't have to compress myself much. I can make myself just small enough to get a good look at the mural while still standing tall. It'll be good to flex those muscles again. Never know what I'll need to squeeze into tight quarters after all. I summon my energy, focus my abilities the way the dreadnought captains taught me, and force myself small. Slow, steady, careful, until I feel a surge of energy that envelops me, seizes me, squeezes me down. My feet never leave the ground, but I fall just the same.
Ah, well done, Phoebe. That was amazing.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I wonder what happens next in our ephemera journey.
Well, I'm glad you asked. To stay with our ghostly companion until midnight, we all withdraw and talk amongst ourselves, and then return to keep our watch. As the hours pass, the figure grows solid, and the phantom music returns to swell the night air. Somewhere far distant, a great clock tolls. Slowly, the figure spreads its arms wide. The hour has come.
Well, that's a bit of a cliffhanger there, isn't it?
Oh, that's part of the journey too. On to our next reader.
Right, my friends, I'm very pleased to introduce Amal El-Motar. Amal is an award-winning author and critic. She is the science fiction and fantasy columnist for the New York Times Book Review and the co-author with Max Gladstone of This Is How You Lose the Time War, which to date has won the Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Awards for Best Novella, and, as of Saturday, also the Aurora Award for Best Short Fiction, so congratulations. She teaches creative writing at the University of Ottawa, and you can find her on Twitter at Tivenai, which is TITHENAI, or subscribe to her newsletter at amal.substack.com. Welcome.
Oh, I'm unmuted now. Hooray! Great. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such an absolute delight to hear not only Derek and Phoebe reading, but oh my gosh, the music was absolutely overwhelmingly lovely. So I'm going to read two brief-ish things today. I'm going to read from This Is How You Lose the Time War, but I also want to read a poem that I have in this book, The Book of Dragons, which is quite delightful and extremely beautifully illustrated by Ravina Kai. So I thought I would start with that and then go into Time War. A final night to her love and foe. Do I love you more when you roar or speak? In flight, a shadow between me and the sky, or bending your strength to nuzzle my palm, my cheek? Do I love you more ridden or devouring, unbidden or scouring a countryside, an enemy fleet? Do I love you more in triumph or defeat? Do I love you more by way of rivers, water-bearing, rain-making, heaven-born and sinuous as thrill, or as fire-breathing, mountain-shaking, livestock-thieving, treasure-taking, boundless hunger, clap of thunder, hoarder of the world's delights? Do I love you when you fight, or when you yield your scales to my flesh? This weak mesh of blood and bone to your fires and your stone, your riddles, your greeting. Do I love you most in parting or in meeting? Solid or fleeting? Do I love you by your head or by your tail, your wings or your teeth, your hard armor above or your softness beneath? Do I love you by your breadth or by your depth, your vast size, or perched upon my shoulder in surprise? Your eyes are everything, are all the world, tail and mouth meeting, unmaking, repeating, feeding and fed, mountain and bed. I love you as I love the vast, unnameable, untouchable, impossible, star-sown sky in a severed thread, or a poem in its stead. I love you living, and I love you dead. I might slightly have a thing for enemies to lovers, a little bit, tiny bit, little bit. So this is how you lose a time war, and thought I would just read you the opening exchange. When red wins, she stands alone. Blood slicks her hair. She breathes out steam in the last night of this dying world. That was fun, she thinks, but the thought sours in the framing. It was clean, at least. Climb up time's threads into the past and make sure no one survives this battle to muddle the futures her agency's arranged, the futures in which her agency rules, in which Red herself is possible. She's come to knot this strand of history and sear it until it melts. She holds a corpse that was once a man, her hands gloved in its guts, her fingers clutching its alloy spine. She lets go, and the exoskeleton clatters against rock. Crude technology, ancient, bronze to depleted uranium. He never had a chance. That is the point of Red. After a mission comes a grand and final silence. Her weapons and armor fold into her like roses at dusk. Once flaps of pseudo-skin settle and heal, and the programmable matter of her clothing knits back together, Red looks, again, something like a woman. She paces the battlefield, seeking, making sure. She has won. Yes, she has won. She is certain she has won. Hasn't she? Both armies lie dead. Two great empires broke themselves here, each a reef to the other's hull. That is what she came to do. From their ashes, others will rise, more suited to her agency's ends. And yet, there was another on the field. No groundling like the time-moored corpses mounded by her path, but a real player, someone from the other side. Few of Red's fellow operatives would have sensed that opposing presence. Red knows only because Red is patient, solitary, careful. She studied for this engagement. She modeled it backward and forward in her mind when ships were not where they were supposed to be, when escape pods that should have been fired did not, when certain fusillades came 30 seconds past their cue. She noticed. Twice is coincidence. 3 times is enemy action. But why? Red has done what she came to do, she thinks. But wars are dense with causes and effects, calculations and strange attractors, and all the more so are wars in time. One spared life might be worth more to the other side than all the blood that stained Red's hands today. A fugitive becomes a queen or a scientist or, worse, a poet. Or her child does, or a smuggler she trades jackets with on some distant spaceport. And all this blood for nothing. Killing gets easier with practice and mechanics and technique. Having killed never does for Red. Her fellow agents do not feel the same, or they hide it better. It is not like Garden's players to meet Red on the same field at the same time. Shadows and sure things are more their style, but there is one who would. Red knows her, though they have never met. Each player has their signature. She recognizes patterns of audacity and risk. Red may be mistaken. She rarely is. Her enemy would relish such a magic trick, twisting to her own ends all Red's grand work of murder. But it's not enough to suspect. Red must find proof. So she wanders the charnel field of victory and seeks the seeds of her defeat. A tremor passes through the soil. Do not call it Earth. The planet dies. Crickets chirp. Crickets survive, for now, among the crashed ships and broken bodies on this crumbling plain. Silver moss devours steel, and violet flowers choke the dead guns. If the planet lasted long enough, the vines that sprout from the corpses' mouths would grow berries. It won't, and neither will they. On a span of blasted ground, she finds the letter. It does not belong. Here, there should be bodies mounded between the wrecks of ships that once sailed the stars. Here, there should be death and dirt and blood of a successful op. There should be moons disintegrating overhead, ships aflame in orbit. There should not be a sheet of cream-colored paper, clean save a single line in a long trailing hand. Burn before reading. Red likes to feel. It is a fetish. Now she feels fear and eagerness. She was right. She searches shadows for her hunter, her prey. She hears infrasonic ultrasound. She thirsts for contact, for a new, more worthy battle, but she is alone with the corpses and the splinters and the letter her enemy left. It is a trap, of course. Vines curl through eye sockets, twine past shattered portholes, rust flakes fall like snow, metal creaks, stressed and shatters. It is a trap. Poison would be crude, but she smells none. Perhaps a no virus in the message to subvert her thoughts, to seed a trigger, or merely to taint Red with suspicion in her commandant's eyes. Perhaps if she reads this letter, she will be recorded, exposed, blackmailed for use as a double agent. The enemy is insidious. Even if this is but the opening gambit of a longer game, by reading it, Red risks Commandant's wrath if she is discovered, risks seeming a traitor, be she never so loyal. The smart and cautious play would be to leave. But the letter is a gauntlet thrown, and Red has to know. She finds a lighter in a dead soldier's pocket. Flames catch in the depths of her eyes. Sparks rise, ashes fall, and letters form on the paper in that same long, trailing hand. Red's mouth twists, a sneer, a mask, a hunter's grin. The letter burns her fingers as the signature takes shape. She lets its cinders fall. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. A little joke. Trust that I have accounted for all variables of irony, though I suppose if you're unfamiliar with over-anthologized works of the early Strand 6th, 19th century, the joke's on me. I hoped you'd come. You're wondering what this is, but not, I think, wondering who this is. You know. Just as I've known since our eyes met during that messy matter on Abergast 882, that we have unfinished business. I shall confess to you here that I'd been growing complacent, bored even with the war, your agency's flash and dash up thread and down, Garden's patient planting and pruning of strands, burrowing into time's braid. Your unstoppable force to our immovable object, less a game of Go than a game of tic-tac-toe, Outcomes determined from the first move, endlessly iterated until the split, where we fork off into unstable, chaotic possibility. The future we seek to secure at each other's expense. But then you turned up. My margins vanished. Every move I'd made by rote, I had to bring myself to fully. You brought some depth to your side's speed, some staying power, and I found myself working at capacity again. You invigorated your shift's war effort, and in so doing, invigorated me. Please find my gratitude all around you. I must tell you, it gives me great pleasure to think of you reading these words in licks and whirls of flame, your eyes unable to work backwards, unable to keep the letters on a page. Instead, you must absorb them, admit them into your memory. In order to recall them, you must seek my presence in your thoughts, tangled among them like sunlight in water. In order to report my words to your superiors, you must admit yourself already infiltrated, another casualty of this most unfortunate day. This is how we'll win. It is not entirely my intent to brag. I wish you to know that I respected your tactics. The elegance of your work makes this war seem like less of a waste. Speaking of which, the hydraulics in your spherical flanking gambit were truly superb. I hope you'll take comfort from the knowledge that they'll be thoroughly digested by our multurs, such that our next victory against your side will have a little piece of you in it. Better luck next time, then. Fondly, Blue.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to hear. I love that scene.
Well, cliffhanger much?
Yes. Lots of cliffhangers. But our journey, at least, is reaching a conclusion. We have voted to stay until midnight. So we do, and suddenly, there before us, there is a blanket spread with the most delectable feast. Our favorite pastries and confections, sweetness to melt on the tongue, and savory bites to keep us refilling our glasses. Side by side, all together, we meet as friends and enjoy this part of our journey. The warmth and fellowship, the hope and closeness. The journey goes on, of course. It always does. But we are together. And that is a joy as we take the road once more. The end. Yay, we did it, everyone!
Excellent choices, everyone.
We did our journey.
Well, until it is safe to return to Glad Day Bookshop, we'll be holding Ephemera right here on YouTube. And speaking of bookstores, do go find your local indie bookstore and order fabulous books by our readers tonight. Derek's The House of Sticks, as well as Derek's other books, and Amal's This Is How You Lose the Time War. And if you loved our little story tonight, be sure to check out Phoebe's game when it is out from Choice of Games. As for us, we're going to keep sticking with the third Wednesday of every month now, so please join us on September 16th for our next event.
Muted. I'm sorry, I muted myself because there was a loud noise outside, and then I forgot to unmute myself, but here we are. That was also a whole journey in and of itself, my friends. But before we go, another massive congratulations to the entire CanCon crew for their well-earned Aurora Award for Best Fan Organizational. You do incredible work, and our lives and community are much richer for it. And we love you, friends. Good job.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ephemera Series. And please subscribe on this YouTube page. We need those subscriptions, actually. We'd like to thank the Ontario Arts Council for their funding assistance and Gangway Theatre Company for help with our performances.
We'd also like to thank our fabulous readers and performers, our friends, our families, our loved ones, and you. Thank you for staying with us on this journey, and we will see you on September 16th. Bye.